My name is Joyce Fowler. I'm 31 years old, and for most of my life, my family treated me like background noise. Useful, reliable, and easy to ignore. They never said it outright, not at first. It was never a single cruel sentence you could point to and say, "That's the moment everything broke." It was quieter than that. 1,000 small dismissals disguised as jokes, compliments with conditions, praise that always landed just slightly out of reach. And over time, you learn your place. My younger brother, Andrew, never had to learn his. It was handed to him early and reinforced often. Andrew was the golden child, the achiever, valedictorian in high school, full scholarship to a prestigious university, graduated with honors, then went straight into an MBA program that my parents loved mentioning any chance they got. Before he turned 30, he had a job lined up at a tech firm that sounded impressive even to people who didn't understand what he actually did. Andrew was the son my parents talked about at church gatherings, at family barbecues, at any event where someone asked, "So how are the kids doing?" And me? I was the other one. I didn't go to an elite university. I went to community college. I worked full-time while taking night classes, juggling deadlines and shifts while Andrew studied abroad and networked. I earned an associate degree in business administration and found a job in logistics for a mid-sized shipping company. It was steady. It paid the bills. It wasn't glamorous. In my family, that meant it wasn't enough. Joyce is very practical, my dad would say when people asked about me. His smile polite but vague. She's doing her best, my mom would add, her tone soft, almost apologetic, like my life was something to explain away. I learned early not to expect much. I learned how to be useful instead. I became the dependable one, the one who showed up early and stayed late, the one who helped move furniture when someone changed apartments, the one who lent money when a bill came up short and never asked for it back. The one who quietly picked up dinner checks because it was easier than watching everyone pretend they'd forgotten their wallets. I paid for Andrew's going away party when he left for college. The cake, the decorations, the catering Mom insisted we needed to send him off properly. No one thanked me. They thanked Mom for organizing it. I covered Dad's car repair when his transmission died and he didn't have the cash. He promised he'd pay me back. He never did. And when I didn't remind him, it vanished from memory. Family dinners became my unspoken responsibility. Birthdays, anniversaries, celebrations for Andrew's internships, promotions, accomplishments. I sat at those tables, smiled, clapped when everyone else clapped, and reached for my wallet when the check arrived. It became routine, expected, invisible, just like me. The invitation to Andrew's MBA graduation dinner came a week before the event. A text from Mom. "Andrew's graduating this weekend. Celebration dinner at Terry's on Saturday, 7 p.m. Hope you can make it." Terry's, the same upscale restaurant where we'd celebrated Andrew's undergrad graduation years earlier. The kind of place where appetizers cost more than my weekly groceries, and reservations had to be made months in advance. I stared at my phone for a long time before replying. "I'll be there." Mom sent back a smiley face emoji. No one asked how I was doing. No one asked if I needed help with anything. No one even checked whether I had plans or how work was going. It was just assumed I'd show up and play my role. The quiet one. The practical one. The one who paid. The restaurant looked exactly the same as I remembered. Low lighting, white tablecloths, the kind of place where even laughter felt expensive. I arrived right at 7 and found the private dining room in the back. The long table was already half full. Mom and Dad sat at the center, Andrew beside them, relaxed, confident, wearing the kind of smile that comes easily to people who've never questioned their place in the world. Andrew's girlfriend Sheila sat close to him, polished and elegant in a dress that probably cost more than my rent. I took the empty seat at the far end of the table. No one commented. No one moved to make space closer to the center. "Joyce, you made it," Mom said, glancing up briefly. "Wouldn't miss it," I replied. Andrew lifted his glass, already halfway through a beer. "Good to see you." I nodded. That was the extent of our greeting. The waiter came around describing specials in a smooth, practiced voice. Filet mignon, lobster tail with truffle butter, pan-seared salmon. Everyone ordered without hesitation. Drinks flowed easily. Scotch, wine, champagne. I ordered water. Dinner unfolded in waves of conversation and laughter. Stories about Andrew's future, his new job, his plans to buy a condo, his ambition. No one asked about my life. Before the entrees arrived, Dad stood up, glass raised. "To Andrew," he said, his voice loud and proud. "Proof that hard work and real ambition pay off." The table erupted in applause. Andrew grinned, ducking his head in mock humility. Dad's gaze swept the table, lingering for just a second when it reached me. "Finally," he added, "someone in this family with real ambition." Laughter followed. Mom jumped in, her tone light but sharp. "Well, not everyone's meant to be a success story." More laughter. A few cousins glanced at me, smirking, enjoying the moment. I sat still, my hands folded in my lap, my expression carefully neutral. I felt the familiar heat of humiliation creep up my neck, but I didn't react. I'd learned long ago that reacting only made it worse. The entrees arrived. Andrew's filet, Dad's ribeye, Mom's salmon, Sheila's lobster tail gleaming under the soft lights. A grilled chicken breast, the cheapest item on the menu, was set in front of me. I ate quietly while the table buzzed around me. When dessert was offered, I declined. Just coffee. Black. The waiter placed the check in the center of the table on a small silver tray. Dad glanced at it, then looked away. Mom did the same. Andrew kept talking, oblivious. I reached for my wallet. But this time, I didn't pick up the whole thing. I pulled out my card, placed it on top of the check, and told the waiter quietly, "Just mine." When the receipt came back, I signed it. $38. My meal. My responsibility. Then I stood. Conversation paused. A few heads turned. "Leaving already?" Mom asked, surprised. "Early day tomorrow," I said. "Thanks for coming," Andrew said distractedly, already turning back to Sheila. I walked out of the private dining room, through the main restaurant, and into the cool night air. Behind me, laughter continued, muffled by glass and distance. In my pocket, my phone stayed silent, because for the first time, I hadn't paid for everyone, and no one had even noticed. I woke up the next morning the way I always did, before my alarm, before the city fully stirred. The apartment was quiet, the kind of quiet that makes your thoughts sound louder than they are. Sunlight filtered through the blinds in thin stripes across the kitchen floor as I made coffee and sat at the small table by the window. My phone lay face up beside my mug, dark, silent. I told myself not to check it. I already knew what I'd find if I did. Confusion at best, outrage at worst. But a small, stubborn part of me waited for something else. A message asking if I was okay. A call saying, "Hey, last night got awkward. Are you all right?" Nothing came. I replayed the dinner in my head anyway. Dad's toast, Mom's laugh, the way the room had erupted when I became the joke. I tested the memory from every angle, searching for a softer interpretation. There wasn't one. They'd meant it. I took a sip of coffee and felt something settle inside me. Not anger, not yet. Something colder, clearer. I opened my banking app. One charge from the night before stared back at me. $38. Terry's restaurant. My meal. Paid. Closed. I leaned back in my chair and exhaled slowly. For years, I'd picked up those checks without being asked. I'd become the default, the safety net, the unspoken solution. And the worst part was how normal it had all felt, until it didn't. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. I stared at it for a long moment before answering. "Hello? Hi, is this Joyce Fowler?" A woman's voice, professional, tight around the edges. "Yes. This is Terry's restaurant. We're calling regarding last night's dinner. There seems to be an issue with the payment." I set my mug down gently. What kind of issue? The full balance wasn't settled. Only one meal was paid for. The remaining charges total approximately $6,200. "And you're calling me because?" There was a pause. Your card was used for the partial payment, so we assumed you were handling the bill for the group. I paid for my meal, I said evenly. That's all I ordered. Well, the reservation was under your family's name, and we were told you'd be covering the dinner. Who told you that? Silence. I paid for what I consumed, I continued. If there's an outstanding balance, you'll need to contact the other guests. We've tried, she said. The cards on file were all declined. I almost smiled. That's not my problem, I said. Miss Fowler, this is a significant amount. We need to resolve this. Then I suggest you contact my brother, Andrew Fowler. It was his graduation dinner. Or my parents, Philip and Anna Fowler. They all ate. They're all responsible. Please, I hung up. I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel cruel. I felt done. The first call from my family came less than an hour later. Dad. I let it ring. Mom. Ring. A text from Andrew. What's going on? Restaurant says the bill wasn't paid. I didn't respond. Another call. Dad again. I declined it and turned my phone face down on the table. 10 minutes later, a voicemail notification appeared. I played it on speaker. Joyce. Dad's voice was tight with irritation. The restaurant says there's a $6,000 bill that wasn't paid. What the hell is going on? Call me back. Now. I deleted it. Another voicemail. Mom this time. Her voice strained and shaky. Joyce, honey, there's been some kind of mistake. The restaurant says we owe money. Can you please call them and straighten this out? I'm sure it's just a mix-up. Deleted. Then Andrew again. Seriously, Joyce, you left us with the bill. That's messed up. I stared at the screen for a long moment before setting the phone down again. It rang once more. Unknown number, I answered. This is your father. His voice was sharp, controlled anger barely contained. What were you thinking? I was thinking I'd pay for my meal, I said. You left us with a $6,000 bill. I left you with the bill for what you ordered. You always cover dinner, he snapped. You know that. Do I? There was a pause. What's that supposed to mean? It means I paid for what I ate. If you wanted me to cover the whole table, you should have asked. We shouldn't have to ask, he said. We're family. Am I? Silence stretched between us. What do you mean by that? He asked, quieter now. I mean, I'm tired of being the punchline, I said. You stood up in front of everyone and said I lacked ambition. Mom backed you up, the whole table laughed, and you think I should have paid for the privilege? It was a joke, he said quickly. It didn't feel like one. You're overreacting. Am I? Or am I just done pretending this is normal? There was another pause. Then he exhaled sharply. Fine, we'll handle the bill ourselves, but don't expect us to forget this. I won't, I said. I hung up. My phone buzzed immediately. Mom, please don't do this. We're family. I stared at the message for a long time before typing back. Family doesn't humiliate each other for laughs. I hit send. Then I turned my phone off. The apartment fell into silence. No buzzing, no ringing, just the hum of the refrigerator and the distant sound of traffic outside. I poured myself another cup of coffee and stood by the window, watching people move along the sidewalk below, each of them carrying their own quiet battles, their own lines they'd finally decided not to cross anymore. For years, I'd carried my family's weight without complaint, paid their bills, funded their celebrations, absorbed their jokes, shrunk myself to keep the peace. And last night, I'd finally set it down. I didn't feel guilty. I didn't feel victorious. I felt something far more unsettling and far more powerful. I felt resolved. Because the truth I could no longer ignore was this. I hadn't been treated like a daughter or a sister. I'd been treated like a resource. And resources don't get celebrated. They get used up. The silence lasted longer than I expected. At first, it felt unnatural. Like standing in a room where a loud machine had suddenly shut off and your ears hadn't caught up yet. No calls, no texts, no guilt-laced voicemails demanding I be reasonable. Just quiet. That quiet gave me space. And in that space, something uncomfortable started to surface. Curiosity, not the dramatic kind, not rage or revenge, just a nagging thought I couldn't shake. How much had I really given them? I told myself I wasn't going to do anything with the answer. I didn't plan to confront anyone or send receipts or demand repayment. I just wanted to know. I needed to know. If only to stop questioning myself every time they told me I was being dramatic. That evening, I opened my laptop and logged into my bank account. I started with the last year. Dinner charges jumped out immediately. Familiar restaurant names. Amounts that made my stomach tighten now that I was seeing them grouped together instead of scattered across months. Then I went back further. 2 years. 5. 10. The deeper I went, the clearer the pattern became. Graduation dinners, birthday celebrations, anniversary meals, vacation deposits, resort fees, random "I'll Venmo you later" moments that never turned into anything. I opened a spreadsheet. Date, event, amount. I worked methodically, the way I always did. No dramatics, no embellishment, just facts. Andrew's undergrad graduation dinner, $2,200. Dad's 60th birthday dinner, $800. Mom's retirement party, $3,400. Family beach vacation, $4,500. My share plus Dad's because it was easier. Christmas dinners, Thanksgiving meals, Tuesday lunches that somehow became $300 tabs. The numbers climbed quietly, relentlessly. When I finally stopped, my eyes drifted to the bottom of the spreadsheet. $47,000. 10 years. $47,000 spent not on myself, not on emergencies, not on experiences I wanted, but on keeping my family comfortable, celebrated, federal, proud. I leaned back in my chair and stared at the screen. It wasn't the money that hurt. It was the realization that in all that time, not once had anyone said, "Let me get this one." Not once had anyone asked if I could afford it. Not once had anyone thanked me in a way that felt real. They had simply assumed. I printed the spreadsheet, 3 pages of dates and numbers, and slid them into a binder. Not to show anyone, not as leverage, just so I could stop doubting myself the next time someone told me I was overreacting. The next morning, I turned my phone back on. The flood came instantly. Dad, we scraped together enough to pay the restaurant. Happy now? Mom, I don't understand why you're being so hurtful. Andrew, you're acting like a child. Grow up. An aunt I barely spoke to chimed in. Your parents are devastated. You should be ashamed. I read them all without responding. Not one apology, not one acknowledgement of the toast, the laughter, the decade of assumptions. They weren't upset that I'd been hurt. They were upset that I'd stopped paying. I blocked Dad's number first, then Mom's, then Andrew's. One by one, I removed them from my phone like closing doors in a hallway I was done walking down. A few days later, a cousin called. Her voice was hesitant. "Joyce, your mom's really upset." "What's she saying?" I asked. "That you abandoned them. That you left them with a huge bill out of nowhere." "Did she mention why I left?" I asked. Silence. "I just thought you should know," she said quickly. "I'm not taking sides." "I know," I said. "Thanks." We hung up. A week after that, Andrew called from a new number. I almost didn't answer. Almost. "What?" I said. "We need to talk," he insisted. "No, we don't." "Yes, we do. You embarrassed Mom and Dad. You embarrassed me." I paid for my meal and left. "You know what you did," he snapped. "I know what I didn't do," I replied. I didn't laugh when Dad said I lacked ambition. I didn't join in when Mom backed him up. I didn't make you the joke. It wasn't like that. It was exactly like that. He exhaled sharply. "Fine, whatever, but you need to pay us back for the bill." I actually laughed then, soft, disbelieving. "My share?" I asked. "I ordered a $38 chicken dish. I paid for it." "You always covered dinner," he said, "and that was a mistake. You're being petty. I'm being done." I hung up and blocked the number. 2 weeks later, I ran into Mom at the grocery store. Pure coincidence. The cereal aisle. She froze when she saw me, her face collapsing into relief and panic all at once. "Joyce," she said softly. I nodded. "Mom." We need to talk. No, we don't. Please, she whispered. Just 5 minutes. I checked my watch. You have 3. Her shoulders sagged, but she nodded. I don't understand why you're doing this, she said. We're family. Then why does it only feel like that when I'm paying for something? She looked away. When was the last time you called just to ask how I was? I continued. When was the last time anyone asked about my life, my job, my plans, without it ending in a bill? We didn't mean to make you feel that way, she said quietly. But you did. It was just a joke, she insisted. Your father didn't mean it. He meant it, I said, and you backed him up. I'm sorry, she whispered. The words should have mattered. Once, they would have. But standing there, watching her grip the shopping cart like it was something solid in a world shifting under her feet, I felt nothing. It's too late, I said. Don't say that. It's the truth. You don't get to humiliate me for years and apologize when the money stops. I walked away. That night, Dad texted from another new number. You're making a mistake. I typed back. The only mistake I made was waiting this long. Then I blocked that number too. I wasn't angry. I was free. 2 months passed. The calls stopped first. Then the messages. Then the guilt, the accusations, the desperate attempts to pull me back into the role I'd finally stepped out of. All of it faded into silence. I changed my phone number, updated my address with work, adjusted my banking alerts. I didn't announce any of it. I just did what I'd always done best, handled things quietly and thoroughly. Without them, my life didn't collapse the way they'd predicted. It expanded. One afternoon, I heard through a mutual cousin that my parents had maxed out 2 credit cards trying to cover the restaurant bill. They'd scraped the money together by draining savings, borrowing from Andrew, and asking relatives for short-term loans. The cousin sounded uncomfortable when she told me. Your mom's been calling everyone, she said, trying to explain what happened. What's she saying? I asked. That you abandoned them, that you embarrassed the family. Did she mention why I left? I asked. Silence answered for her. Yeah, she said softly. I figured. I didn't feel vindicated. I felt confirmed. A week later, I received something unexpected. A letter. Not an email, not a text, an actual handwritten letter, postmarked from 2 states away. It was from an uncle on my mom's side, someone who'd moved years ago and only showed up for major holidays. Joyce, I heard what happened. I don't know all the details, but I want you to know I'm proud of you. I've watched your family take you for granted for years. It was only a matter of time before you saw it too. If you ever need anything or just want to talk, I'm here. I read it twice. Then I wrote back. Short, simple, grateful. We started exchanging emails. Nothing heavy, just updates, check-ins, small kindnesses that reminded me what normal support actually felt like. A month later, I got promoted. Senior coordinator. Better pay, real recognition for projects I'd been managing quietly for years. No applause, no speeches, just a manager who looked me in the eye and said, "You've been holding this place together longer than we realized." I celebrated by taking myself out to dinner, a nice place. I ordered what I wanted, ate slowly, paid my own check, tipped well. It felt good, not because of the food, because of the freedom. One evening, I sat on a park bench near my apartment, watching the sun melt into the skyline. The city hummed around me, dogs barking, a couple laughing, a child pedaling in uneven circles. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. Joyce, it's Andrew. I stared at the screen. I think I get it now. What happened at the dinner? Why you left? I'm sorry. I didn't respond. Not because I was angry, because sorry didn't erase 10 years of being invisible. It didn't undo the laughter or the assumptions or the quiet certainty that I existed to fund their comfort. And more importantly, I didn't need the apology. I went home and opened the binder on my desk. 3 pages, 10 years, $47,000. I looked at it for a long moment. Then I closed it. I didn't need it anymore. Not to prove anything, not to justify myself, not to remind myself why I'd walked away. I already knew. Because sitting there in my quiet apartment, surrounded by peace instead of noise, I felt something I hadn't felt in years: relief. I wasn't the family wallet anymore. I wasn't the joke. I wasn't the invisible daughter who showed up, paid, and disappeared. I was just Joyce. And for the first time in my life, that was enough. I didn't miss them. I missed the idea of what family should be, but not the reality of what they were. As I closed my door that night, the apartment settling around me like something earned, I knew one thing with certainty: I wasn't going back. Not to their dinners, not to their expectations, not to the role they'd assigned me. I was done paying for the privilege of being diminished. And that ending, quiet, firm, and final, was the beginning of everything else.